Well, the NHL made headlines across the sports world last week. Obviously, it was All-Star Weekend, and one of the biggest stories coming out of it was Michael Bublé was apparently on shrooms during the initial player selection, player draft. So, Christian, look, man, you just got to give it to me straight up. Have you ever been on shrooms while we've been doing one of these? It's okay. Like it's okay.
Sometimes I wish,
Sometimes you wish.
Sometimes I wish with the crap we have to talk about and the crap we have to deal with on a regular basis.
Yeah, you cannot blame
I know
Buble for doing
JP
that.
has for sure been on shrooms multiple times recording this.
You think so?
Yeah,
I think right now.
you'll never know.
Sometimes
Your
you never know.
silence speaks enough.
Sometimes it looks like he just never gets enough sleep, but maybe it's the shrooms. You never know.
He goes tens of minutes without saying a word. He just takes it all in.
I can't believe
And then we'll end the recording and be like, "You guys are just flowing, man. I just wanted to sit back and listen to it."
remember the free agency episode where he zoned out for 30 minutes just watching Is It Cake? He might have just been stoned out of his mind the whole time.
We lost our rights.
This is slander.
I can't imagine what you know what like watching that show must be like something if you're tripping out.
That show made us lose our rights to watch while we record.
I took away our
Which is ridiculous.
Our Netflix right. What do you mean it's ridiculous?
We used to be a proper podcast.
Mr. Football talks more than
I had nothing to say. I had nothing to say.
Not too different from the norm. In any case, folks, welcome back to the Sabre Roundtable. My name is Jonah.
I'm Christian.
I'm JP.
And as always, we'll be talking to you about all things Buffalo Sabres hockey and a little bit of the wider NHL. The Sabres are back in action tomorrow or probably tonight, depending on when this gets out, against the Dallas Stars, and that'll conclude their All-Star break. And just to jump right into probably the biggest headlines that has come across the last 24 hours or so, the Sabres will be without Jack Quinn for about 6 to 8 weeks, which we expected. We knew that injury was going to be holding him out for a little while, but definitely the bigger news, or at least the more unexpected news, Mattias Samuelsson, he is out for the season with an upper body injury. That ends his campaign for this year for the Sabres. So two big blows. You knew one was coming, and the other one totally came out of left field. The Sabres are now without Mattias Samuelsson and Jack Quinn while trying to put together some type of playoff push here in the second half.
He seemed to have been fighting through something for quite some time. I mean, we make
3
jokes.
years.
We make jokes. He's on the injury report all the time, but I mean, I don't know. Maybe this is a sign to reduce his minutes a little bit. Maybe he shouldn't be playing on the top pair. Why did they break up Power and Samuelsson earlier in the season? I don't know why. They were a pretty good pair, but I don't know. Now you don't get him for the rest of the season. Maybe less minutes would have been more beneficial to him, and maybe that'll be the mantra going forward.
I mean, I think it's also just his play style. I mean, he's blocking a ton of shots. He's getting down and dirty in front of the net. He's more of a defensive guy. So I think it's going to come with him just getting injuries. But it has been a little excessive. I mean, like Jonah said, we legit have no idea what this is. They have not specified. So anybody's guess is fair game.
Which I'm really confused by because they deactivated him for the season. He's not coming back. Why would they just say upper body injury? Why wouldn't they just tell us what it is?
Because the NHL is really dumb like that.
I'm going to say it's probably
I'm going to say
shoulder surgery. Yep.
Yeah, it's got to be something like that.
Yeah, your guess is as good as mine. Definitely, he has gone through the ringer, and especially at such an early point in his career. Guy's only been in the NHL for 3 years, and it feels like he is just always hammered by injuries, and this is just the latest one to hit. And Christian, you bring up a good point. He's been such a vital. They've put him in such a vital role, I should say, since he's made his debut. And the style he plays is obviously so demanding. Other than Rasmus Dahlin, he is the most physical player on the roster. I would pretty much guarantee he leads the team in block shots. He's on their first penalty kill. He plays a very demanding style. And you throw on top of that he's playing first pair minutes pretty much night in and night out.
And the penalty kill.
And you couple that with the fact that he's just unlucky. This is just going to keep happening. It's probably just going to keep happening. He seems to already be that type of player that injury just kind of follows him around. He's always going to play through something nagging. But it's almost expected. It's almost expected of that type of player, of that type of play style. It reminds me a bit of like what they need to do with Samuelsson moving forward. It almost kind of reminds me of Rasmus Ristolainen in a way. Like, we begged for so long, take down the minutes, lessen his load, because the people always fell in love with him and his physicality and how they just like that element of his game. And you kind of rolled your eyes at it sometimes, but Ristolainen was at his best when he was physically engaging. But when you're playing 25, 26, 27 minutes a night, that's a very taxing play style in a league where you play 82 games a season. And I don't think it's any mistake that once Ristolainen got to Philly and Tortorella is not using him like a number one defenseman and is giving him the better matchups, he's actually been good. It was once seen as impossible. He has now been playing at a good level for about 2 years now. And I think that if this Samuelsson, if this doesn't signal to them that you got to tone it back a bit, you can't put so much on Samuelsson's plate moving forward, then you're going to find yourself back here in another time.
Yeah, sometimes what's a part of being a good coach and a good organization and management and all that is just recognizing when, like, I understand putting your faith in guys and wanting to give them every opportunity, but another part of that is knowing when you've hit your ceiling with a player and moving them into more of a role player type of position instead of trying to make them something they're not, because at the end of the day they're not going to be their best version of their player. Like you made a good point with Risto. Like, when he was drafted, he was supposed to be the guy, and we saw kind of year after year he would always find himself on the first pair. The organization was giving him all the opportunities, and year after year he would disappoint. He wouldn't be that number one defenseman that you wanted out of a player that you drafted that high. So I think a big part of this offseason coming up is going to be Kevin Adams recognizing that Samuelsson should fit more of that role player type of player where he, maybe plays less minutes, but he still plays on special teams. And then he gets maybe those shifts at the end of the game when they're trying to protect a 1-goal lead. That would be a better role for him to move into. And then I guess piggybacking off of that, I'd like to see them go out and either, trade for or I guess purchase a bona fide number one right-handed defenseman that is a number one, not a gamble, because we've gambled last offseason. We don't need to do that again.
I think that's at the top of any NHL team's buyer's list. I think everybody's looking for a number one right-handed defenseman.
Right, I know. Yeah, that's true, but also it's now or not. Like, the core is here. This is what you're going to ride with. It's like, got to make a big swing because it's obviously not working out right now. And these guys aren't getting any younger. Yes, I know they're still extremely young and they're still technically pretty inexperienced, but I think the best thing for this team's overall development would be going out and making a splash and, trying to get someone in the door that has legitimate number one pairing defenseman minutes and play. And the cap's going up. So come on, come spend a little money.
There aren't too many right-handed defensemen just on the market, though. That's the issue.
I guess.
But
Okay, they don't have to be
obviously,
right-handed. They don't even have to be right-handed. Just a top pairing defenseman.
Well, I hear
let's
Jacob
go to the.
Chikrin's back on the block.
Oh, jeez. Let's go back to the 0506, all left-handed defensemen. All right. There's nothing wrong with that.
Stop trying to recreate the past.
It worked.
It worked at what other time in NHL history has that worked?
What was the one tweet that you sent the other day? Or it was like last week or something in one of our group chats, and it just said it was two people texting back and forth, and the one person was just like, "It feels like 2006 today," and they were like, "Why?" And they're like, "I don't know, it just does."
Oh, I sent that.
Mm-hmm.
I can't remember what that was about, but you know what? It'll make great playoff content if that time ever comes.
If is the keyword.
If is the keyword.
So the Sabres go into their sort of second half stretch here without Mattias Samuelsson, now without Jack Quinn as well. The deck is seemingly already stacked against them. And before we get into our sort of main topic today, which is going to be just grading the Sabres roster to this point, let me ask you guys, what do you want to see in the second half of the season? What do you want to see? Any specific milestone you want someone or the team to hit?
Oh, I got a milestone for the team to hit.
What's that?
First team in NHL history to win 25 games in a row. That'd be nice.
Aim high and okay, I respect that.
What I want to see
bulletin board material right there.
Just a legitimate push. I don't know how many more seasons I could take where I just come out and say like, oh, what do we want to see out of this team at the end of the season? I want to talk about what do we want out of this team going into the playoffs. It's stale. But if there is something I want to see is I want to see Tage Thompson turn it on a little bit. He's probably also been plagued by injuries this season. He's definitely been handicapped on the power play for reasons that are out of his control and possibly probably mostly out of his control. They've sealed off his spot and the power play has been below average.
It's a nice way of putting awful.
Yeah, just a little below average is probably where I'd put it, but
it's totally not sinking the season or anything.
Yeah, I'd like to see Tage Thompson turn it on towards the end of the year. I don't know, JP, you got anything to add?
Yeah, I was gonna say I just want to see all of our players get their games back. Like I know at like what our last time we did a mailbag, I was saying how they need to experiment with some stuff, bring some guys up, and I just don't see that happening anymore. With Kulik and Roseanne really haven't been playing the best, so I don't see them making like any moves like to bring any big prospects up. So I just want to see our guys get the games back. I want to see Power, get involved offensively. Obviously, Cousins and Paterka have been playing a lot better now, but like you said, Tage really hasn't been Tage. So I just want to see our guys get our games back, and hopefully, end this last stretch of games on a high note. We don't want any of our players to be doubting their games going into the offseason. Like they need to get back on their vibes and just ride it high for the rest of the season and see what happens.
Yeah, one of my main ones is definitely I want to see Tage Thompson go absolute freak mode for the last 30 games or so. I feel like this week and a half off they've sort of had, hopefully that wrist is feeling back to 100%. And I want to see him just kind of get back to where he was, because obviously when Tage is at 100%, he's pretty good. I also want to see a big second half from Owen Power. I'm kind of sick and tired of the discourse surrounding him after this year. I would like to see him shut some naysayers up. And Christian said it best. I want to see a push. I know that what we just talked about for the past 10 or so minutes, Samuelsson being out, Jack Quinn being out, it stacks the deck against them. but I still think they have it in them. They were without Mattias Samuelsson for a large part last year, and well, I know people like to point towards the record with or without him last year as the reason that they missed, but I don't really believe in that, considering they're actually undefeated without Samuelsson in the lineup. So
Yeah.
I want to see a push.
Are you
sort of
implying that we
jam.
might be buyers at the deadline?
When's the last time you've played franchise mode for NHL?
I don't play video games that much, but I've played franchise mode, but it's been a while.
I would classify us as conservative buyer.
Conservative buyer.
Conservative buyer.
I think it's I think everybody's going to be disappointed at the trade deadline. I'll put it that way. I think we'll get rid of a few players, and maybe we won't make a creative buy low kind of player like you mentioned, like kind of how Greenway was last year. But I think everybody's going to be disappointed at the end of the day. We're not in a position to make a big move, so it's wait for the offseason, then we could have an actual conversation.
I'll tell you what, I'm not saying we're going to be buyers, but I have a weird feeling that there might be some like unprecedented move. Like it might not be a big move, but like let's say they ship out Girgensons for a pick, or let's say they I don't know, maybe they flip Yoki Haru somewhere. He's an RFA, but you know, if a team wants depth, you could flip him somewhere. I have a feeling we're not going to be heavy buyers, but there's got to be some give taken into this lineup in the offseason, because I think we've said it throughout the year. I think I do kind of agree with the fact that I don't know, Jonah, I don't know if you agreed with me when I said this. We have a lot of the same type of player, but I really think just a general lineup shake is due, whether that is true or not, as to if we have too many of the same type of player, whether you agree with me on that or not. A lineup shake-up is due this offseason, whether that be like the bottom six, all fresh faces or mostly fresh faces, parting with a guy like Middlestat. That could also be, you know, you never know. That could be a trade deadline type of deal. But I'm going to say we're going to be mostly inactive from reports I've also been seeing on Twitter. But there's that small chance it won't be a big move. It won't be anything crazy, but it'll just be it'll seem kind of random, and it'll also seem kind of shocking. And that's what I think we'll probably, at the most, we'll get out of this trade deadline. So if you're out there, you're a Sabres fan, and you're hoping for an active trade deadline, which I'm sure there's a ton of people out there just expecting one like they do every year, don't get your hopes up.
Just start looking at former U.S. development players, and then we'll figure it out.
Can we trade the coaching staff at the deadline?
Has there ever been a coach trade in the NHL?
We traded for Dan Bilesma.
Yeah, we did.
We did.
We traded a third-round pick for Dan Bilesma.
Oh my god, that was before I was really a fan. That is wow.
Yeah,
I did not know that.
Yep,
that's something.
And he did a bang-up job. He really did a good job.
We thought he was like the worst of the worst back then, and look at what's happened since.
The funny thing is, we haven't had like a coach with a winning track record since we had him,
because he scared us off. The entire locker room hated him.
Yeah, well, you can't make that assumption off of his like track record. That's just a personality.
In any case, to get back to the trade deadline, I think people like to lump in Adams' deadline. Like people like to say that his deadlines are quiet, and not really. I mean, his first year he was forced to sell. Year two, it was kind of weird. His second year, if you guys remember, he only traded Robert Hagg. He held on to people like Colin Miller, Mark Pysyk, all those pending UFAs. He kind of held on to. But last year, I mean, he did kind of buy. I mean, he bought Riley Stillman, and that was a pretty good addition down the stretch. And he bought Jordan Greenway, which I've seriously, like, that is the type of addition that I feel like you always want to look for. I still look back on that deal with, I look back on it in a good point of view. Like it's exactly what they kind of needed. He adds another dimension to their game because he's a forechecking presence they really don't have. Obviously, he adds some size, and he's a defensively capable player. I think if you can do a similar thing to your defense, especially now that there's such a big hole there, I think that's what you just got to look for. I do like the point that Christian raised about maybe an unexpected move, specifically around Yoki Haru, because I do think that that's someone that they really could move on from because he's found himself out as the odd man out on some nights as a healthy scratch, which is really weird considering he has been good this season. So I can totally see that happening.
And he has some actual value. Like
he does. Yeah.
Some of the other players,
24 years
I think
old,
they might chip out.
defenseman, cheap contract, can play up in the lineup.
Yep. Like I think some of the other players that might chip out is like Eric Johnson, like Christensen, maybe Gergensons, but like those aren't going to get a huge return. Yoki Haru, you could flip someone. Like
what they really need is just like another Nylander trade.
Yeah, that's what I mean. He needs a change of scenery, and someone else needs a change of scenery. I mean, that's probably what you would most likely get, but he does have value, 100%.
If I'm looking at the decor as a whole going into next season, I'm looking at top pair Dahlin ? Second pair Samuelsson Power, third pair Ryan Johnson and Connor Clifton / insert name. They just really, they just need one more piece on defense, even if it's like a short deal and it's like it's a lot of money. They need that one more piece on defense because there's a constant rotation of Dahlin and insert player X in the top pair. And it's been Samuelsson most of the time, and now he's hurt. And this could be contributing to why he's getting hurt. Not only, but like we mentioned, the style he plays, but his minutes are so high. He just might not be that player. So I'm really hoping for a big acquisition on defense. I'm kind of expecting it next year.
All right. Let's move on to the meat of this episode. So we are right past the halfway point of the season. I figure it's a perfect time to kind of do a mid-season grading of pretty much every player on the roster. I'm going to limit this to they have to have at least played 5 games. So basically the only people that rules out is, I believe, Yuri Kulik and
Isaac Roseanne.
No, because Roseanne got a decent look.
Yeah,
it was Brett Murray. Brett Murray only played 2 games, so it just kind of removes them off the list. But everybody else is fair game. So I think the way that we're going to do this is I'll just throw out my grade. You guys give out your thoughts, and we'll try to settle on one score maybe.
Rapid fire. Boom boom.
All right. So Here's the interesting one. I'm going to set this as an interesting grade because we know I've had a lot of discourse. I've started a lot of discourse about him myself. So, Rasmus Dahlin. Even right now, I'm still fighting to decide what I should give him. I'm going to try to be a little spicy here. C+. Higher or lower?
Oh, I was gonna say like a B.
Yeah, I was also gonna say B.
I didn't want to go B. I really, because I didn't like. I know, okay, I know the flack I'm gonna get for this. He still leads NHL defensemen in goals. I'm pretty sure
he does.
The offense has really not been an issue. From my point of view, he's your franchise guy. His defense has not been good, and even his offense hasn't been as good as last year. If he hasn't hit 5 or so empty netters this season, I think we're having a very different conversation about him.
I mean, I obviously
I am willing to raise it because like I said, I was fighting it myself because even that's like C+, like
He hasn't lived up to his contract and who he should be playing like every night. But I don't think he's been bad. I mean, obviously he
Well,
could be better, but I don't think he's been
okay.
bad.
And I should specify these grades, they're not like a set mark. These grades are based relative to expectations. So I would say B is they are performing to expectations.
If you want to make it that, I'd go B minus.
Yeah, I was gonna say
Um,
B minus.
I can live with
I
a B minus.
Yeah, he's been okay. Obviously, you want more out of him, especially making $11 million. But yeah, I'll settle at B minus.
Okay, I can live with that. All right. Tage Thompson, here's another interesting one. So I was also deciding with him because it's like I've actually kind of been defending him, but at the same time, like if you compare him to last year, like he obviously hasn't been that. So I was flirting with C plus or B minus there as well. I decided to be, I guess, nicer, and I went with a B as well.
I was gonna say C plus.
I was thinking more of a C. I mean, I don't feel like
Really?
I don't think he hasn't been that impactful this year.
He
I mean,
really
obviously he's been
hasn't.
fighting injury, but he hasn't been even close to himself.
Which is a
Man,
shame.
it's kind of funny we've
Obviously.
kind of flipped here. I think I'd be more willing to defend him because I also think if you compare him to last year on the defensive side, it's night and day. It is
That's
night and day.
true. That
So
is
that's
true.
I'm also taking that into consideration.
That's true, but we're not paying him for his defense. Like he hasn't been producing, and that's what we need most out of him.
I don't disagree, and we've obviously, I think we all collectively agreed we want to see Freak Tage make a return.
hmm
So, I mean, I guess I'm kind of being downvoted here. Should we settle on a C plus?
That's fine.
I want to let the record show I was willing to go up.
Yeah, I'll go C plus.
All right, C plus it is. All right, so I think this is be the first one that I think we can all pretty much universally agree on. JJ Paterka. A.
A plus.
A plus.
I was gonna say an
A
A.
plus.
I was gonna say an A because he did have a little dry streak, but for 2/3 of the season, he's been dynamite.
He's in his second full season. He's been probably the most impactful forward out of this group. He's just turned it on again. I think he's been absolutely fantastic all year.
I would be willing to go up to an A plus actually because I do think like he's been very good two-way as well.
Mhm.
I would be willing to go up.
I'd be willing to go up. I mean, he's been. I mean, like Christian said, he's been debatably our best player. He did have that little dry streak like this last, probably like a month and a half ago for about a month. But I mean, whole team has been playing the best, so I'm fine with an A plus because he's been one of the lone shining lights of this whole season.
All right. A plus for JJ Paterka. All right, so here's an interesting one. Owen Power. So this is a player that I have defended quite a bit, but I don't think it's really a question that he has dipped compared to last year. So I'm starting the score low once again. C plus. How do we feel about that?
I could agree with you on C plus.
Think so?
I think yeah.
That's right around what I was thinking.
I think we're in
Mhm.
consensus here. He has taken a step back. We said earlier in the year, like sometimes it's like Owen Power is one of those guys where he does everything right, but when he does, he's invisible, and then he makes that mistake, and everybody jumps on him because it's like the first time you feel like you see him. But some of the best defensemen are the ones you don't see too often. So
Yeah.
I think he's got room to grow, especially next year. Maybe he could turn it on at the end of the year, but yeah, I'll stick with a C plus.
Yeah, I think that he's also. It goes without saying he's 21 years old. It's his second full season. Not to backpedal into old topics, but it does feel like he just has an unfair amount of shade thrown towards him, and I don't know. I feel like Rasmus Dahlin did not have a better sophomore season than his rookie season, and there was not this much discourse over that. I can tell you that much. So
Yeah.
Owen Power, C+. Casey Middlestat. I think this one is fairly obvious. The guy leads the team in points. He's played first line center a lot of nights. I'm going A+.
Yeah, A+.
Yep.
And that's why I think we should trade him. I got cooked so much for that take. When I put out that clip, I knew every platform there was a new batch of angry replies. I'm sticking by that take, people. You won't convince me otherwise. But I do want to clarify because there were some like it's a short clip. Obviously, even last episode we went into it a bit more. It was mostly predicated off the fact like if he has to sign for like $6.5-7 million, then that's where that scenario goes. Now there was a projection going by one model on Twitter that got people talking. If his contract was a 5 by 5.8, if that's what he wants, I am running to the bank. Like that is the easiest contract to sign for Middlestat in a rising cap. All right, Dylan Cousins. Once again, I'm starting it at C+.
I could meet you down at a C if I'm being honest with you. Like it's a shame, but he's just he just hasn't been the impact player that we want. He's supposed to be 2C, and he's been acting like a bottom six some nights. He's had some really rough goes of it as of recent and throughout the season. Maybe he's battling injury. I don't know, but it, he just got paid, and it's just not looking good right now. But again, I have full faith that he could turn it around. But it hasn't been Dylan's year, so I'm probably good with like a C. Nothing crazy bad, but not meeting expectations.
Yeah, I think I agree. I don't want to let recency bias affect myself too much because he's been playing a lot better recently. But for a majority of the season, he was not too impactful. I think he had a lot of pressure coming this season. A lot of stuff on his mind. He's got the new big contract. We got to make the playoffs. So I think he was just not confident in his playing, and he was overthinking it. But he's been playing better recently. But majority of the season, he was not himself. So I agree with the C. If he had Jack Quinn all season, he'd probably be closer to a B minus. But
I don't know. I really feel like he's been super unlucky. Like it's like
I agree.
When he had a
me too.
bad start to the year, then he got his he got his face clocked, and that didn't help. He was wearing the bubble for like he was wearing the fishbowl for 10 games. Man, I feel like ever since like mid-November, like he's still been good. I don't know.
I can move up to a C plus. You're talking me into it a little.
I can meet you there.
Because like I really don't think he's been as bad as people like, especially the last month and a half. I really don't think like.
Yeah, he hasn't been bad. So he just hasn't been as impactful. But yeah, that's a fair point. He hasn't been bad.
Okay. C plus.
Yeah.
All right. C plus for Dylan Cousins. Peyton Krebs. So I am very pleased with how he's been playing, especially since Robinson has got here. Especially given they still will not move him out of that damn fourth line center spot. I went B. I'm giving him a B. I'm curious to see what you guys think about him because he's kind of gone quiet in terms of discourse recently. So I'm interested to see if you guys have liked his game as much as I have.
He's been on the team a few years. He's part of the Eichel trade. I feel like people expected more out of him, but at the same time, I cannot put that all on him because he's been consistently thrown into basically what is it, like just like a forechecking line, or it's like not even, he doesn't have anyone around him that could, elevate his game to, fit his offensive prowess. So I could agree on a B, but I could also go B minus just because there's a reason he's not out of that spot. Zach Benson's been, pretty high up in the lineup consistently. So
I think he's really tough to grade because I know at least Joe and I are in the belief that he should get some chances to play up in the lineup, but they refuse to give him it. So I don't want to let my bias affect it because I think he can be very good, but I think B's probably fair. He has made some impactful plays, and I agree. I think him and Robinson have been pretty good together. And obviously, hey, Okposo's a first liner now, so it's going to be Robinson, Krebs, and Gergensen's probably for a little stretch now. So I think B's fair, but I could, if someone wanted to tell me like they gave him a C or even lower, I could also hear that. I think it really depends on how you view him as a player for him.
So I guess that is kind of tough to go from there. B minus.
B minus.
All right, B minus it is. All right, speak of the devil, Kyle Okposo. I feel
like everyone's looking at me right now.
I mean, I think every listener, anybody who's watching on YouTube, and including me, myself, and JP, I went B. So I'm curious to think how you think Kyle Okposo has graded out this year.
So as in B, you think he's meeting expectations,
He is
right?
100% meeting expectations in my mind. If you expect any more from what he's doing, it's solely based off the fact he's a captain. And like I get it, but I guess we have different standards of like what a captain needs to be. Like did you expect him to be a first liner this year?
No.
I mean, I know he's there now, but
he is, yeah.
Also,
and he's on the top power play unit.
Yep. First power play unit. So
I'd probably go with like a C plus, but I could settle B minus just because. I mean, if you look, it was a one-off season, but the season he scored 20 goals kind of netted him that extra deal almost with this team, but. I don't know. It's tough. Because I know what my expectations are for him, and they're not very high. Outside of a captaincy role, he's a great captain. He is. I have full faith in him being a great captain, and I hope he's around the organization if he decides to retire this offseason. But I'll go. All right, you know what? I'll go B. I'll agree with you. I'll go B. Expectations.
That is major character development right there. I am proud of you for that grade.
Okay. Yeah.
He's probably met expectations with this play, but I will say, since he is the captain, I mean, this team has been all over the place, and I think we've lost a lot of confidence in the room at times. I don't want to blame it all on the captain, but I think some of it should be on him. So I'm not going to drop his grade that much, but if you're talking about like leadership is a problem, coaching is a problem, I think you got to lump Kyle in that, and also probably Erik Johnson because he's taken on a leadership role.
I get that. I do. I'm just like, I think it's tough.
I agree with this.
He's in a tough spot because he's the captain, but he's not a core piece. If this locker room is really, if their confidence is shaken, I don't know. Like, yeah, of course you look to the captain, but at the same time, he's not a part of the core. So I look to Dahlin, I look to Tage, I look to Tuck. Like, to me, those guys, Okposo's the leader, but like those guys are in charge of morale because they're just such key players. So for me, it doesn't affect his letter grade. That's fair. Are we in agreement on B?
Yep.
Yeah.
B for Kyle Okposo. Well, let's get on to the other man that JP mentioned, Erik Johnson. I'm not gonna beat around the bush. I gave him a D minus. I'll let the record show I didn't give anybody an F because I don't think anybody's been like that atrocious, like that bad. I think this is the lowest score I gave out. I gave out a D minus to Erik Johnson.
Yeah. Other than contributing to the power play, I mean, not the power play, Jesus, the penalty kill, and that was only earlier in the season when it was cooking. He hasn't really made much of an impact other than that. So yeah, D minus. I can go with either. At that point, it's basically irrelevant. It's a low grade.
I want to word this carefully because I don't think he's been good, but I don't think he's been as bad as everybody thinks he's as people have been saying. I'm gonna give him a D plus. I think he's been bad, but I don't think he's been as bad as everybody's saying.
I can't wait for
I mean, I
JP to
guess,
say the
like-
same thing when we go talk about Jacob Bryson.
I guess like relative to like I guess it depends like what were your expectations for him. I don't know. He just frustrates the hell out of me. I can go up to a D, I guess.
Yeah,
That's as far.
I think D's fair. I feel like D minus is pretty low. Like I don't think he's been
Fair enough.
atrocious.
You won't get me on this next one though.
I'll
Clifton.
go with a D.
Connor Clifton is a D minus. Yeah, I know JP was on that little. He was producing for a little bit. I do not care. I do not look because here's the thing. Okay, he has been. Can we agree he has been just as bad as Eric Johnson?
Yeah, probably. I would give him.
If you,
I would have given
this-
him a leg
if
up
it
on
was,
Eric Johnson.
If it
but
was a pyramid, like if we did like a pyramid scheme, would they be in the same tier?
yes,
Okay.
Yeah. They
So
would.
you couple that with the fact he was your marquee addition in the offseason and he's making $3 million for the next 3 years. His
Higher
expectations are
expectations.
higher.
Yep.
Okay, I didn't give him enough.
That's fair.
I think I could have. I gave him a D minus.
If you want a
that's
couple
fair.
expectations into there, yeah, I could agree with a D minus.
Outside of a brief 7 or 8 game stretch where his on ice shooting percentage was like in the 20s, he hasn't been good. I'm sorry, it hasn't been a good start.
He went full when he tripped over himself in Anaheim. That was like a Risto moment when he like ran into the boards. He like got hit by a ghost. Yeah, D minus.
I almost
I
forgot
could
that
go with that.
Oh my god.
He's had better highs, but he has had probably worse lows than Johnson. So I guess if you're doing it based off expectations, yeah, that's fair. Even though, once again, I don't think he's been as bad as everybody thinks, and I don't
You're
mind
too
his
nice.
play. I don't know.
You're too nice. You're too nice of a fan.
I am.
I want to
well,
like him. He's going to be on the team.
I want
for
to
the
like
next
him
2
too. I was
years.
very excited. Look, I love the addition when they first signed him. It has not gone well, and that's a nice way of putting it.
What free agent signing has ever gone well for us?
If he gets his game back, he can fit into this, and he could be a good third pairing defenseman. But I think
I
with
agree
how
with
our
that.
game is gone, so I think the logic behind the addition was correct. But the logic that we were going to push him up the lineup was overblown, and this should not have been a narrative.
All right, D minus for Connor Clifton. Alex Tuck. I gave him a B plus. I think he's third on the team in points. I really have not had any issues with him this year. I think he's. I mean, I know it hasn't been last year's production, but I think you couple that with the fact he has been fighting through injury. I mean, geez, there was that one stretch he didn't even get rehab skates. He just had to come right off. I really had no issue with him. I'm giving him a B plus.
Yeah, I could probably go around the same grade. He seems invisible at certain times, but what player on this team hasn't seemed invisible at some point during the season, other than Paterka? Well, even Paterka, other than Middlestat, probably. Yeah, I'd say he's at least meeting expectations, and he's a first line guy, and he's had his points. So yeah, I'll give him a B plus.
I mean, I think if you're going based off expectations, I would honestly give him a B minus. I also have had no issues with him, but I think he has been a little lackluster compared to last year. And I have no issues with him, and maybe it's because the top line has not been that good this year. But if you're saying based off expectations, I don't think you could say he's been better than expectations.
That's fair. That's fair. I guess I was just grouping it. Like I think he's playing through something, and we knew they brought him back too early. But I can go down to B minus if we wish.
Do you want to just meet at a B?
I'm fine with the B.
I'm fine with the B. I can live with that. All right, Jeff Skinner. I'm gonna go with an A minus here. I think he's basically doing what you wanted him to do. Obviously, the production has slipped a little bit, but he's getting older, so I think if your expectations are relatively in check, this is natural. He's still playing like Jeff Skinner. I'll put it that way.
I was gonna say an A. I just, I think he's been consistent. He's our best 5v5 player. And at a time early in the season when this team really struggled at 5v5, he was still producing. So I would give him an A. I'm also a big Jeff Skinner fan, so
Yeah, I was gonna say B plus. I think he's still been good. But like I said, the top line really hasn't been the best, so that's probably also affecting. And also, me and Jonah don't love him on the power play, and that always creeps into my head.
That's
So
a bit of
even
an
though he's been
understatement.
fine,
Yeah, that's probably
Yeah.
why I wouldn't go an A there.
yeah.
The power play does stink, and I kind of think he's a big reason for that.
well, we average it out. It's an A. So I guess we're sticking
A
with an
minus.
A minus.
A minus.
A. A minus. A
A
minus.
minus.
Sorry.
A minus. All right, Henry Jokiharju. I went B plus here. I think given he was pretty largely on the struggle bus for a large part of last year compared to what he's done this year, I think he's been above expectations.
I'm good with that.
Yeah, it seemed as though at the beginning of the year we were kind of writing him off especially after acquiring 2 defensemen in free agency, and he's kind of jumped both of them, and he's basically said, "I'm still here." So definitely exceeded my expectations. So I can go with a B plus.
All right.
His issue is he doesn't play any special teams.
Yeah, and he doesn't really produce on the point side of things, other than maybe assists.
All right. Here's an interesting one. Matthias Samuelsson. So there's definitely some division in terms of what people think of him and how effective people think he is. I tend to find myself on the more positive side of things, so I went B minus here. Slightly below expectations, but his defensive results were still decent. I don't think it's his fault that he's being overplayed.
I was gonna say C. I don't know. It just, I feel like the time after time the injuries just keep creeping up on him. And again, that might not be his fault, but I just had higher expectations for him, I mean, he went into this season like we thought that was the number one pair. It was going to be Dahlin Samuelsson. And I don't know, he's just, he's worked his way around the lineup. He's had injuries, this and this. It's not what I expected. And whether that's out of his control, in his control, whatever. I guess I can go C plus. I'll go C plus.
Yeah, I think I'm in between a C plus and a B minus, but I'd probably lean. I don't know. I'm right in the middle. I don't want to give him a C, but I also don't know. I don't think he's been a B. So, I don't know. You guys can meet
All
somewhere.
right.
I don't know.
I guess I can be talked into a C plus. I guess. C
Once
plus
again, I
it
think
is.
his hate's been overstated, but he still
Yeah.
hasn't been that
It
good.
has. It's just, he just signed that deal. And, I mean, I know Kevin Adams had high expectations for him. I'm sure Don Granato did too. And, no, it's just, it hasn't been it. When he's been out there, I mean, it's not like last season either, where it's like, oh, he's so much better. Like when he's in the lineup, we win. When he's not, we lose. It's been the opposite this year. So that narrative, you got to put it to bed. So I'd say C plus, but I don't know. Jonah, you got anything to add? Maybe swing to a B minus?
No, I guess. I guess given that his season has ended prematurely,
That too.
I'll just give it a C plus. I will cave. I will cave into the hate that people tend to dish out towards him.
One piece of advice I can give for the people listening out there is always give in to peer pressure, no matter what it is.
Bullying works.
Bullying works.
I think, there's been a lot more case studies, especially for this team, that, being assholes to people, it does work. Look at
Yeah.
Casey Middlestat. That's some of our best work. Some of our
It is.
best work that was fueled from hate.
Proud of us.
Look at where he is now.
And he still has
Look
haters.
at Ugo Pekalukanen. I mean, look at we.
I
trashed
was
that guy
I
up
was
and down.
driving
really.
I was driving that bus, and I still am.
I was going to say,
Because
you
it's
still are.
because it is working. So I'm
Keep
going to
pumping
keep
the
driving
tires.
that bus.
Look at us.
All right, Zach Benson. So I went B plus here. He's 18 years old, and he's found himself basically a nightly NHL player. The points haven't come, but he's proven himself to be a pretty decent player defensively. I think he's deserving of above average, above expectations grade.
Yeah, the points aren't there. I was gonna go in somewhere in the A's just because like I didn't expect him to be in the lineup this year at all. I
I was gonna
expected him to be
say,
back in the WHL.
if you go based off those expectations, you could give him a A plus plus.
I
But
mean, I
I agree.
guess, but like it's
I
not
agree
like
based off of his play.
like
B plus A
he's been a
minus.
solid. He's been about like an average NHL player, which an average
Yeah.
NHL player for an 18-year-old is great. It's just he had the big performance against Vegas, and that's probably going to go down as his best performance of the season. It's just being 18 years old, those performances are few and far between. So
And
I went B plus.
I'm
I
outnumbered
agree.
here. I'll concede. I'll concede the election to a
You
B
just
plus.
like youth, man. Like this has been a thing since the moment we started this podcast. You just like the kids.
Do not take that out of context. Jesus. Please. Don't clip that. Do not clip that. I want to be on the record. I do not like the kids. Moving on. Zach Benson, B+.
We're lucky we don't have any sponsors. They'd be pulled. All right. B+ for Zach Benson. Jordan Greenway. I went B here. I think given what I thought he was going to be this season, I think he's basically playing up to expectations. Solid two-way player, has given them an edge on the forecheck. Production isn't insane. I think it's just he's been about what you would have thought he would have been, I think.
Yeah.
And
You convinced
very
me.
good penalty killer.
Very good. And yes, one of the league's better penalty killers. So I will go B. Victor Olofsson. So here's the weird thing. Like, obviously he's barely played, and it's not like he certainly hasn't been the Victor Olofsson of old whenever he has played. He's not even scoring that much on the power play, but like honestly when he has played, it's not like I don't it's not like I'm rolling my eyes every time he's out there. He actually cleaned up a bit of his defensive game this season. I went C+ or C-. I think that's like he has it's not Eric Johnson, Connor Clifton bad. He's just been like like the contract stinks given what he's doing, but there's been times this year when he's like weirdly, I guess, broken out almost. Like he's weirdly done well given what the coach thinks of him.
Sad to see my boy fall so far. Man, when I was a senior in high school, he was the guy. But the team also stunk. So, yeah, considering he hasn't been in the lineup that much, I wouldn't go anywhere above a C. I'll go C.
JP, noted Victor Olofsson fan.
He's going to give him an F-.
No. I mean, this season's really been out of his control, and I really do feel bad for him. And I agree. I don't think he's been bad when he's played. So I could go with the C, honestly. But I don't know. He didn't win a lineup spot, so I guess you could say it is partially his fault, but I don't know. I don't think he should be on the Sabres anymore. I think that's the issue. We should have let go of him.
Mm-hmm.
In a good, trade him somewhere else. In a good way. I don't mean we should have cut him, but I feel bad for him this year.
C-?
Yeah, I'll do C-.
Yeah,
That's
that's
fine.
Right, C-. Zemgus Girgensons. I went C+.
So you know what you're going to get out of him. It's the same thing every year, pretty consistent. Defensive forward, not going to bury the puck too much. He'll give you that physicality on that fourth line, and that'll be it. So B-, C+, somewhere in that range. I'm cool with that.
I'm leaning more towards a C. I feel like compared to years prior, I don't think he's been as good. I mean, we've all kind of talked about it. Like he looks like he's lost a step, which is weird to say considering he's only 28 years old. So he has not lived up to expectations for me. So I'm sticking with the C.
You'd lose a step too if you played for this team for 10 years.
I guess I'm willing to drop to a C. I really don't. I don't think he's been I don't think he's been disappointing. It's like Christian said. You just kind of know what you're gonna get. So
I'll stick with a C+.
If you want to stick to a C, that's fine. Or if we want to do C+,
I'll go C+.
C+, JP.
Yep.
C.
That's sure. It's fine. It's
C+.
It's just some guess.
Brownie points for being around for so long.
All right. Ryan Johnson. I went B minus, and I know, obviously he's on the more favorable side of things. I just think, he's been good. He's been good in and out of the lineup. It's kind of out of his control compared to how he's been playing. I do think there's been some rookie hiccups that we've been willing to overlook because he's much better than some of the other options they decide to play on a nightly basis. I don't think he's been knocking anybody's socks off. So I'm between B minus and B, and I went with B minus.
I would go B. I think he's like, I mean, for first year in the NHL, basically. I've noticed like he's his stick handling, his puck handling skills are fantastic. Like the NCAA has really built him into a great professional player. Even just seeing the amount of games he's played so far, which isn't a lot, but yeah, I could agree he's had some growing pains as rookies do, but I would say he's right on track. I would just go with a B.
Yeah, he's been up and down, but I'll stick with the B.
All right, B it is. Tyson Jost, I went D minus here. Like it stinks. That's actually other than Clifton is the harshest grade I'm going to give out. I just think he wasn't very good in his time here. I think given that you probably expected him to do more, getting demoted to the AHL and everything, I just think it hasn't been the season he wanted. So I went D minus.
Nah, I agree. You get sent down, that'll tell you. As a professional, you get sent down, that'll tell you. Well, I mean, as like a tenured professional, you get sent down. That's all I need to hear.
I agree. He should not have signed back with us. He didn't have a spot.
Okay, Ukko-Pekka Luukkonen. I think this one's pretty easy. A plus. I think we can all agree. This is not what we expected. Come on. If you don't say A plus, this is nuts. This is nuts if you don't say A plus relative to expectations.
I wasn't gonna go anywhere below an A.
Okay.
But like, I don't. I was gonna
we
say
have a number one goaltender right now.
He had a rough stretch of games.
He had like
but
3 rough games.
Goalies have their rough stretches.
Dude, like, come on. Like, this should be easy for you because you hate him so much. This should be the most layup A plus I think there is. Relative to expectations, he's been insanely good.
I guess, yeah, if you want to bake expectations in, I'll go with A plus. Sure.
Welcome to the cult.
Oh, that made my skin crawl.
All right, Devin Levi. I think relative to expectations for a 21-year-old, I think he's just been, he's been slightly below average, so I went B minus.
I agree.
He's on track. He's very young, I don't like how they handled his path this year, but I'm sure him and his camp wanted NHL games. They got it, and hopefully he has a better understanding of where he is. So, I guess at the beginning of the year, we were talking about him being the guy, and we're a little delusional to say that. So yeah, I guess I can go a little under expectations. I'll go B minus.
All right. Jack Quinn. In a short time here, I'm throwing out the injury stuff because it's just out of his control. This is not like Sam. Like, I know he is sort of a player who injuries kind of follow around, but I feel like these are just too, like, especially the last injury. Like,
those two are fluky.
Any player is getting hurt on his last injury.
Yeah, that isn't like banged up day to day like Samuelsson has been. That's been legitimate. Both injuries have required surgery. It's not soreness. It's not maintenance days in and out of the lineup occasionally, a game in, a few games out. Like Samuelsson's kind of been in and out. Jack Quinn has been, when he's been hurt, he's been hurt.
So I went B plus. I think he was, in a short time, he was seemingly on his way to the breakout season you wanted him to be.
Yeah.
So I went B plus.
I would even go as far as say A minus. He made that second line so much better when he was back.
I was leaning A. I really liked how he came back.
I can go with A minus. A minus.
All right.
Eric Robinson. I think he's basically done everything you thought he would have. He's been a reliable fourth line winger who has given them a nice little bump in production from the fourth line. So I went B.
Yep. He's been fine. Exactly where I thought he'd be. Fourth line. It hasn't been terrible. So, how many games is he on track to play? Is it over 40? 42
It's probably
probably.
it's probably around there.
You can be the art of the deal, Kevin. Just sit him the last few games and you get that 7th round pick back.
Eric Comrie. So I think this stinks because I think he only played what 8 or 9 games in the NHL. When he did play, he was pretty decent for them for the most part until he got injured. But given his unreliability, I went C minus. I think that's pretty fair for him. I'm rooting for the guy, but obviously he's not falling his way.
Yeah,
7
in or out
games
of his
played,
control.
by the way.
In or out of his control. When he has been in, hasn't looked great. Nothing to write home about. Maybe that has to do with sample size. Maybe that has to do with having 3 goalies on the roster. Not getting those practice reps that you want. I could agree. What'd you say? C minus? Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, C minus.
I'm fine with that.
All right, Jacob Bryson. I went B minus. I actually think he's been, it's Jacob Bryson. It's nothing special. But I'm not gonna sit here and act like he's been terrible in the games he's played. I actually think he's been relatively fine.
I agree. Even though Christian thinks I'm the biggest Bryson hater on earth, I agree.
This is like the UPL situation flipped around. Give me an A+, baby. We're 4-0 when he's in the lineup. No, I'm rooting for him. I really am. I think he's made legitimate strides to be a better player in the offseason. I'm sure he works hard. That one game he played earlier in the season when he made that little nice move at the blue line, it looks like you didn't see that out of him too much before that.
Ladder. That one play bumped him up a full ladder.
A triple plus. But yeah, he's Jacob Bryson. Probably won't be anything more than a bottom pair guy. Hopefully he's maybe he'll make his way to a rebuilding team because I think he could really add some value and experience to one of those teams. But would we say B minus?
Mm-hmm.
Okay, that's fine.
All right. I think we can actually get away with this and group these last 3 together. So Lucas Rusick, Brandon Bureau, and Isaac Roseanne, I gave all of them Ds.
Yeah, none of them have made legitimate cases to stick around in the lineup. You got an 18-year-old rookie who's up playing above you. Tyson Jost was getting more reps than these guys at a certain point. Even Victor Olofsson. It could have something to do with their experience. Maybe it's some of their age. I mean, they're not young. They're not young, but they're not old. But they didn't do nearly enough to make me say, "Hey, I want this guy back up here." We want Kulik and we want Roseanne up here. We say it all the time, like, "Oh, give them their games occasionally, but don't burn their ELC." You don't say that about these guys. They just haven't done enough to stick around.
I can agree with Byron Rusek. I think Roseanne I would bump up a little more because I think he was starting to play a little better, and he's the type of player where if you want him to produce, you got to surround him with some actual good players, not just stick him on the 4th line like he's not a 4th line player. So I would bump him up slightly.
I would be
in my
willing to
opinion.
disagree with that because if he wants to play on this team moving forward, he kind of has to do his own thing.
Exactly, yeah.
And
There's no more room for these surrounding. Like you got the guys. You gotta be your own thing.
I don't disagree, but when he played, it was when our lineup was hurt. So he was playing with Robinson and Ferguson's, or I don't know. I think I agree. He doesn't have a spot in the top 6, but if you want him to be productive, at least surround him with some talent. Put him on the 3rd line. I think if you put him on the 4th line, he's not going to be able to showcase his talents.
I don't know. I think
Considering what we've seen so far, like I mean, we can make these theoretical assumptions, but from what I've seen, he hasn't impressed me any more than Brandon Bureau or Lucas Rusick. Maybe slightly, but not enough to bump him up a half letter grade.
Well, we could agree to disagree. I
Okay.
would only give him like
The final grade is
one
D.
letter grade
You're
higher.
you're overruled.
Overruled.
All right. I would only give him a D plus, so we're not splitting hairs here.
All right, so that'll wrap up all of our player grades. I guess I'll recap what we agreed on very quickly. Rasmus Dahlin, B minus. Tage Thompson, C plus. JJ Paterka, A plus. Owen Powers, C plus. Casey Middlestat, A plus. Dylan Cousins, C plus. Peyton Krebs and Kyle Okposo both get B. Connor Clifton is a D minus. Alex Tuck is a B. Jeff Skinner's an A minus. Henry Okiharu is a B plus. Mateus Samuelsson is a C plus. Eric Johnson's a D. Zach Benson, B plus. Jordan Greenway, B. Victor Olofsson, C minus. Semgis Girgensson, C plus. Ryan Johnson, B. Tyson Jost, D minus. Ukko Pekka Luukkonen, A plus. Devin Levi, B minus. Jack Quinn, A minus. Eric Robinson, B. Eric Comrie, C minus. Isaac Roseanne, Brandon Biro, Lucas Rusek, D. And Jacob Bryson, B minus. All right, let's hop around the NHL. So the All-Star Weekend has wrapped up. What did you guys think? Because I think this All-Star Weekend I actually really don't think it was that bad. I actually think they put together a pretty decent weekend this year.
Yeah, I thought it was all right. You know, I didn't catch too much of the skills competition or anything like that, but I do like them going back to the draft format over just, the boring divisions. So makes for a more interesting dynamic.
I think given what was it? I think Nathan McKinnon said how they did not know they were going to be in front of 20,000 people doing the draft. I think that was definitely a misstep. They probably should have put them in a studio like the old days, so that they could actually like show off some of the personality they wanted to bring out. But I think other than that, I think that first night was the worst night. But I think the skills competition, the players, they said to have liked it a lot better this year. And the All-Star game was what it usually is. Nothing special, but I think, especially given that it was in Toronto, I think the league did a good job pulling it. Like they got a lot of good, what you call it? They got a nice spotlight put on them. Obviously, Justin Bieber with his connections to Toronto and the Maple Leafs, and obviously Tate McRae being someone that the youth audience can actually identify with, not like Kid Rock or someone performing at the All-Star game. So I think, and then you had Michael Bublé confirming he was on shrooms at the draft. So it was, it was a good, any publicity is good publicity.
That's true, yeah. Especially when you're the NHL and you're competing with the other big three sports that are ahead of you.
I don't know. It's just an All-Star game. I don't really care for it. I will say it was at least better than the Pro Bowl. I watched some of the Pro Bowl. My God.
I didn't even watch any of it.
I
didn't watch it. It was just on in the background. I was like, oh my God.
The Pro Bowl, it's like, it's something that you swear would only air on like Nickelodeon. Like it's so unserious.
It's gotten so bad in recent years. I miss the days where it was like, you got the best guys in the world, like it's a game. They got to incentivize it in a way where they can make it like something to go out and tear your ACL for.
The only All-Star game that is at all interesting to me is baseball. And even that, like the All-Star game, I don't really care. I mean, at least it used to kind of had incentive, which was crazy that it used to determine home field advantage in the World Series. But they got the home run derby. That's really the only All-Star thing that actually interests me. No other All-Star games live up to it. NBA sucks. NHL is just all right. Pro Bowl sucks. I don't know. I'm not a fan of All-Star games.
Yeah, it's really, it's an event that's not really meant for us. It's meant for kids. So
that's fair.
No, I know what you mean. I think they did a decent job this year. Obviously Nikita Kucherov not caring about the skills competition whatsoever was pretty funny. But it was also another one of those like good publicity things. Like it was it's comical that he doesn't care that much. I do got to say, I thought that we were given the jerseys a lot of negative press last episode. I actually thought that the white and the yellow versions of the jerseys looked pretty good.
Yeah, I remember talking about that. I could agree with you too. The white ones, the one Rasmus Dahlin was wearing was I didn't mind. I still hate the nameplates, but
Yeah.
I thought the white ones were all right. The yellow ones fine. The other two terrible.
Yeah, they're better than I thought they were gonna be, but I don't
I
know.
still thought the red, whoever was wearing red and blue, they looked like Power Rangers, so I wasn't a huge fan there. All right, let's jump into a trade that actually happened over the break. Sean Monahan was dealt by the Montreal Canadiens, and he actually got the first round pick that people were joking that he was going to get. He goes for a 2024 first and a conditional third round pick in 2027. The condition on that pick being if the Winnipeg Jets win the Stanley Cup. I did not think that he would. I don't think anybody thought he would actually go for a first as a pending UFA, but they got it.
The Habs cooked on this one.
They did.
They did very good. I'm not sure what the Jets are doing to do that. I don't know.
Montreal fleece.
Yeah, it's. Look, I mean, the Jets are going for it. They're obviously having a great season. I don't think I would have used my first round pick on someone who's going to slot in as my third line center, but who am I to judge? My team might not even isn't going to make the playoffs. Let's be real here. All right.
Yeah.
And we did. All right. And we did have one big firing. The Kings have fired Todd McLellan. Jim Hiller has been named interim coach for the rest of the season. And we did actually get some additional news today. DJ Smith is seemingly going to join the Kings in more of an associate role. So
grooming him for the job. He had a lot of success with the Senators.
We were very close to the Sabres being the team that killed McLellan's tenure. I would give them an assist at least. So but I mean, seriously, like the Kings were looking like the team to be reckoned with out of the West, and they were running away with the Pacific. And then as soon as the new year kicked in, like I think they lost like 7 of 8 or so. Like it was a bad stretch. And obviously when Buffalo played them, they blew a 3-1 lead, and Buffalo took over the third period. It was definitely, you could sense that team they needed some sort of shakeup, and here it is. And on to the biggest news, the news we've been waiting for going on, 10 years. The NHL is going to be making its return to the Olympics in 2026. And
It's about time. And I cannot wait for the U.S. to smack Team Canada in the mouth. Because they don't deserve anything. That country's hockey program doesn't deserve anything after all that they've had in the past, and not even, that's fine. They've been successful, but with what's happened recently, with the complete lack of just human decency within Hockey Canada, it's just been, they don't deserve any sort of win, whether it's World Juniors, Olympics, 4-team tournament, or any of that. They don't. Do you disagree?
Find yourself who hates a country as much as Christian. You probably won't be able to. He's just one patriotic fan.
Yeah, he's one of the biggest
Team
Canada
USA
haters.
win.
He loves his country.
Team USA win.
Yeah. No, it's really exciting. It's about time they do that. And that will pretty much supplement the All-Star game, right? Because the All-Star game anymore.
It's just next year. There will be no All-Star game. There will be a 4 nations face-off between the U.S., Canada, Sweden, and Finland. So no All-Star game next season in 2025. There will be a quick in-season tournament. So
that'll be fun.
I think that's great.
That's going to be cool. But then obviously in 2026, they will head to Italy. and then they will go in 2030 again. But they also announced that now they're going to be doing the thing that we all wish they would do. They're going to alternate between the Olympics and the World Cup of Hockey every 2 years. So in 2028, I presume there's going to be a World Cup of Hockey, which is awesome.
It's going to be a fun few years.
Especially with the World Cup of Hockey, at least you'll get some other countries. Like obviously next year it's only a 14 tournament. Like there's some countries that are getting excluded. I mean the biggest one's obviously Russia, but obviously the reasons are valid.
Yeah, they said they would take them.
They are one of the best teams.
Yeah, look at Dominic Hasek's Twitter account if you want some updates on what the feeling is around Russian hockey or Belarusian hockey.
We don't get to see the Latvian Lokomotiv play. We don't get to see Peterka play for Team Germany with Draisaitl. So
oh my God. Draisaitl,
there's definitely
Stützle,
some countries being let out.
Peterka is going to be crazy. Stützle being the third best player on the line is going to go. It's going to be insane.
You're not wrong. At this moment in time, you can make a legitimate case for that.
But it is going to be interesting to see, obviously, the Sabres have guys that there's going to be guys that are going to play. Okay, Dahlin is going to play. Peterka is going to play. I would pretty much assume Tage Thompson's going to play. He probably would find himself on the roster right now, and this is his down period. But obviously, then you have the interesting ones. Does Casey Middlestat get a surprise bid? I would really hope that Devin Levi gets a bid because, especially with Carter Hart now out of the picture, their goaltending depth for Canada is not good. It's Tristan Jarry, Aiden Hill, Jordan Binnington. So there's definitely room for Levi to maybe not next year for the Four Nations, but I think in 2 years, I think he can cement himself as one of the top three.
Dude, imagine a U.S.-Canada gold medal game and Devin Levi is pitching a shutout and he's doing the Jedi
like deja
right
vu.
in the
Deja vu to 2010.
Can't have that happen again.
I'm sorry. I'm sorry. Reverse deja vu. And then obviously you would have, if UPL keeps playing this way, I think he could very well be the way for Finland, and you would think Kulik would make Czechia within 2 years. So definitely exciting stuff. And, Latvia, I think we all know who's going to lead the charge for that team if they get in.
Yes,
sir.
But it'll be cool. One of the things I was always upset about was that, Jack Eichel never got to represent Team USA as a Sabre, which is nuts because he was on the team for 6 years. He missed 2 Olympic
Seriously.
So that stinks. Hopefully we'll get some serious representation at these next few tournaments. But obviously, huge monumental news for the league.
Yeah, an actual good move by the NHL. So good stuff.
Yeah. Mm-hmm. But I think that is basically going to wrap up everything that we have to talk about. Thank you guys very much for listening. I think we'll be back with you guys next weekend. Obviously, the Sabres are back in action this week. We can actually take a quick peek at their schedule coming up. Obviously, they are back in action against the Dallas Stars tonight or tomorrow night or tonight, depending on when you're listening to this. And then they don't play again until they play the Blues at 1 o'clock on Saturday. So those actually might be the only 2 games we'll talk to you guys about. But I think other than that, if you guys got nothing else left to say, if you want to follow us on Twitter, you can follow us at The Sabre Report. Follow us on Instagram at The Sabre Report. Follow us on TikTok. Subscribe to us on YouTube. If you want updates for the pod, follow us at Sabre Report Pod. Go give our good friends over at the Buffalo Sports Talk podcast a listen. But other than that, we will see you guys next time. Thank you for listening and or watching. See you next time. Go Sabres.
Go Sabres.
Go Sabres.